Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patrons, Paul S. and A Starship Story. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. After just a few days of version 14, Tesla has since released 14.1.1. I've watched plenty of version 14 videos, and most of the testers right now are saying the same thing about this new .1, significantly less of the brake stuttering and jabbing. It might not be gone completely, but significantly improved. If you're experiencing FOMO, be at ease. Holmar is saying he still prefers the comfort of version 13. And Holmars is in the camp that this version could maybe go out to a few more people, but he doesn't recommend taking it wide yet. But Zach, who's also been testing, said I had none of those issues. Feels like it rounded off the edges with 14.1. Zach had his own post about 14.1.1 and he said it's exactly the same great performance as expected, but better. He said .1 had some better lane discipline on the highway. He said it was obeying no right turn on red signs. So overall, he said it was more polished and smoother. But his one request, more assertive lane changes in traffic. Zach didn't mention anything about this, but in a few videos I've watched, it does look like 14 can avoid some potholes. I'm not ready to say it's a legitimate, reliable feature, but I think it might be better than version 13, which was effectively non-existent. And another one I'm watching closely on the first version, just 14.1, Dirty Tesla said that it was not reacting to school zone speed limits. And so far with school zones, I haven't seen too much testing with this new .1 release. And Zach shared a clip of the new .1 version that in my eyes really is must see, so here you go. To quickly set the stage, you see a group of bikers and the navigation set to go straight, but the car does something else. So if you missed it, it's like the car recognized this street going straight was about to be crowded with all of the bikers, so it gets in the left turn lane, goes against what the navigation is saying to do, takes these back streets that are clear, and then continues from there. As we know, Elon's been throwing the term sentient around, and this clip is one of the best explanations of that in action. And on Friday, when I said Tesla was at this inflection tipping point, well, I only shared one anecdote, but there really are many more than that. Yoon Tasai from Tesla just said, I ran into several people in trade interested in FSD. It's not confined in tech-savvy circles anymore. But I keep going back to thinking that the real moment is going to happen when unsupervised happens. Even if it's limited geographies to start, which I think it will be, when people realize they can buy a Tesla that will in the near future allow them to be on their phones even for portions of their drives or rides, that is going to be the real needle mover. And based on everything I'm seeing, it feels like that could be right around the corner. And listen, I know Tesla and Elon have been talking about this for years, so people are sick of hearing it, they just want to see it. I'm just trying to call it as I see it right now. Holmar shared this video where FSD hit the brakes pretty hard at a yellow light, which is part of FSD 14 recognizing things so quickly, actually to a fault. But in this case, since the car actually ended up in the crosswalk, it threw it in reverse and backed up. So version 14 is still overly cautious and jittery as it learns to handle these superpowers, but one thing you cannot say so far is that it's not safe. I haven't seen any critical disengagements, and I've seen plenty of highlights, and you guys know I always look for the bad at this stage. If you've seen any, please tag me on X. As I said over there, I'd like to see the next wave of testers get a chance to test it, so hopefully this week that happens and 14.1.1 or the next dot release goes a bit wider in the next few days. Some news you probably haven't heard yet, Surfshark is launching 100 gigabit servers up from 10 gigabits previously, an order of magnitude increase and the world's first 100 gigabit VPN servers. What does this mean? Well, in short, all the users connected to the server have access to much faster speeds. As internet traffic grows, Surfshark is growing ahead of it to future-proof its performance, and we, as the end customers, will benefit. Surfshark already has excellent speeds, which is part of why I partnered with them in the first place, but now you can expect even more stable connections, less buffering, high-quality streaming, and VR. This news proves Surfshark is a pioneer in the VPN industry and also also the sponsor of this video, setting a new standard. There's been a massive increase in demand for VPNs, with search volume for VPNs up 7,000% year over year. The reasons? Government internet restrictions, age verification laws, social media bans, and growing concerns over online privacy. If you're still on the sideline, it's beyond time, in my opinion, to encrypt your online activity with a VPN like Surfshark. The UI is super easy to use. The clean web feature will remove ads and trackers for you. It can unlock new libraries of content, get you better deals on flights and hotels, and the feature list goes on and on. So if you'd like to support the work I do here, you can get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN for free at surfshark.com/electrified, or you can use the code electrified at checkout. As Green the Only pointed out, it looks like we'll be getting some new autopilot visualizations for the in-car UI. Just some of the examples: an ambulance, fire truck, garbage truck, school bus, a European semi-truck, a golf cart, someone on a scooter, on a skateboard, someone pushing a stroller, a street sweeper, a 3-wheel vehicle, a trailer, a train, a tram, someone in a wheelchair. And then here's a scene with all of these dynamic objects in one visualization. I get excited to see things like this because anytime I have passengers in the car, they love things like this. Even just the visualizations we've had so far are so much different than anything they're used to. But this is a perfect time to remind everyone of something important from the owner's manual. FSD visualizations may not be a holistic representation of the objects, road markings, road signals, and other variables that FSD takes into account as it attempts to drive to your destination. It's using data from the cameras on the vehicles that may not be represented in the visualization. Elon and Tesla have said in the past, the car is not driving based on what we are seeing in the visualizations. So yes, the visualizations will continue to improve and be better at representing reality, but I think it's important to remember that the car is not driving based on what we are seeing in the visualizations. And perhaps best of all, Jaden went ahead and shared this: Tesla should add assets for anti-Elon protesters, and he went ahead and made one up. So Jaden, if you see this, very well done, my friend. Unfortunately, we have a lot of questions about what's going on with Robotaxi right now. Part of that is the question about the gold lines versus the blue navigation lines. Abhimanyu recently did some rides in Austin, and he actually ended up with the blue nav line. It's tough to tell, but the camera and audio monitoring alerts were actually on the left with this one, so Chuck Cook said he believes this could still be version 13. Whereas the word so far has been with version 14, you'll have those indicators over on the top right. So if that were the case, why is Tesla running some Robotaxis with version 13 at this stage, when all along we've been told the Robotaxi software is about 6 months ahead of what the customers have? And yes, of course, that could all be changing with version 14. But my point is, it would be nice to get an update from Tesla so we can understand a bit better what's going on. The good news, we are only 8 days away from Tesla's Q3 call on October 22nd. And just a heads up, Warren Redlick shared this photo of a Tesla Robotaxi in Orlando, Florida, but sometimes we don't know for sure because you can actually buy these stickers aftermarket, meaning this could just be a regular customer-owned vehicle and they decided to slap the Robotaxi sticker on it. So for me, given the current job listings and the blacked out windows, I'm assuming this is just a customer car with an aftermarket sticker. AI Driver posted 14.1.1 needs to roll out to everyone with advanced updates checked. He said it still has mild hesitation issues, but basically it's too good for more people not to experience it, and Ashok liked it, which yes, gives me some hope that in the next few days we'll see a bit wider release. Not necessarily a wide release, but just the next wave. We got the wholesale data for Tesla China for September. It came in at 90,812, which was by far the best wholesale month this year. The second place position was last month, 83,200. But zooming out year to date for the wholesale figure, Tesla China is still down 10.3% year over year, although that gap is continuing to close based on prior months. I think it's worth pointing out Tesla was running some incentives in China that were expected to end at the end of Q3. Things like 0% APR, paint credits, transferring the Chinese version of FSD that they're still calling intelligent assisted driving, but many of those were extended into quarter 4, at least right now, going through the end of October. And then looking at the weekly number for Tesla China, it came in at 11,300 for week 2 of quarter 4. So starting quarter 4, Tesla China is down 5.7%, but so far compared to Q4 of 2024, Tesla China is up 58.4%. And speaking of closing gaps, year to date, the same thing is happening for Tesla China domestically, now down only 4.8% year over year. I have not seen the breakdown including the Model Y L yet for this week, but I'll update it when I get it. And one final note, the first 8 days of October in China this year were actually a holiday, so that was likely to have at least some impact on these numbers. Shifting to the US, we got the Cox Automotive EV sales report for quarter 3. Some of you will remember a benchmark I've been watching now for over a year has been what other automaker will hit 10,000 EVs sold per month first after Tesla. Given this report is through September, that means we need to look for any other automakers that have more than 90,000 EVs sold year to date. And once again, no one has hit consistently that 10,000 EV per month figure other than Tesla. Right now, the closest would be Chevy, coming in just over 87,000. Behind Chevy in third place would be Ford at 69,600. But Ford's only up about 3% year over year, where Chevy's up over 113%. Looking at the bottom half of the list to check in on Tesla, Tesla's actually down 4.3% so far year over year. And Tesla's year-to-date EV market share is 43.2%. And zooming out, looking at total EV sales, they have grown 11.7% so far year to date, coming in at just over 1.04 million EVs sold in the US through September this year. Continuing to focus only on year-to-date numbers, Rivian is down 13.2%. Lucid's up over 23%, but they're still under 8,000 units total year-to-date. Kia, which at one point was doing quite well, is actually down 33.4%. Mercedes is down over 40%. And the final brand I wanted to highlight was Hyundai, which is actually up 31%, sitting in 4th place overall at just over 57,000 EVs sold through September. Looking at the model breakdown, the best-selling EV behind Tesla's Model Y and 3 is actually the Chevy Equinox at just under 53,000 through September. That's followed up by Ford's Mach-E at just under 42,000, and then you have Hyundai's Ioniq 5 over 41,000, and then the Honda Prologue just over 36,000. So that rounds out the top 5 best-selling EVs in the US, again behind the Model Y and the Model 3. Now, separating out the electric pickup scene, I broke it down for the last 3 quarters. Most recently, the F-150 Lightning led the way at 10,005, and the Cybertruck was in second at about 5,400. And as you'll see, for the past 3 quarters, the Cybertruck has fallen in the 2nd or 3rd spot for the best-selling EV in the US. In Q2, the Cybertruck did 4,300 units, and in quarter 1, it was 6,400. So right now, the steady-state Cybertruck demand is hovering at right around 5,000 units per quarter, or 20,000 per year, well below expectations. With no real turnaround in sight, and heading into Q4, we lose the tax credit for some of the Cybertruck trims. Remember, the rear-wheel drive variant is no longer an option at all anymore. And no disrespect at all, but I'm not sure why people are so confused about the poor Cybertruck sales. Reason number 1, it's just too expensive still. And reason number 2, it's too politically charged. I really don't think it's any more complicated than that. As it is on the configurator right now, the all-wheel drive is $80,000 and the Cyber Beast is $115,000. Unfortunately, the way I see it, unless Tesla can find a way to have an offering closer to $60,000 and preferably starting with a 5, while not eliminating many key features, I just think the Cybertruck is going to be relegated to a niche vehicle for Tesla. So it is a shame knowing how cool of a vehicle it is and how advanced the tech is, but we do need to call a spade at this this point, I'm comfortable classifying the Cybertruck launch as a failure for Tesla, especially relative to expectations. And sure, there are tech advancements and supply chain arguments and learnings that will offer benefits to Tesla. Most Cybertruck owners love it, saying it's the best car ever, and yes, things can always change, but for now, the sales just are not good. In the US, in Q3, EV sales set a new record at over 437,000 units for the quarter. This was up from the prior high back in Q4 of last year that was just over 350,000. So significant outperformance, but that was to be expected with the tax credit, and I still fear that Q4 and through Q2 of next year, EV sales might be pretty bleak in the US. From Kelley Blue Book for the month of September, the average transaction price is now $50,364 for a new vehicle. So Tesla's new standard vehicles may not have been as affordable as many were hoping, but a Model Y for under 40 grand and a Model 3 for even cheaper in light of that new transaction price isn't too shabby. On Weibo, Grace Tao said at the beginning of Q4, the workers at Shanghai are working hard to expand production and sprint at full power. Many people are interpreting this to say Giga Shanghai is massively ramping production in Q4, but remember, she could still be referring to the ramp of the new Model YL. And let's get it out of the way because there are plenty of Chinese influencers across social media regurgitating this news from 36KR, which can be thought of like a TechCrunch, but a Chinese version. They did talk a bit about Tesla's new standard models, but later in the article they said this. A person close to Tesla's HQ revealed that Tesla intends to restart the R&D of the NV91 and NV93 projects. This to create new cars smaller than the Model Y. The NV91 is largely known as the project that Tesla was going to price at $25,000 in the market. Here's the thing, 36KR has certainly been right before. This is not some random AI slop website, but this one also doesn't make logical sense given the new standard Teslas, Cybercab right around the corner, and the current state of FSD. I would be quite surprised if Tesla were to spin up entirely new production lines for a legitimately new variant anytime in the next 18 months. And frankly, I feel like the only thing that might make sense is if Tesla were to sell the Cybercab with a wheel and pedals. But as I've made very clear, I'm still listening to Elon and Lars and Franz and everyone at Tesla that's made it very clear that is not going to happen. So given all of this information, I'm not ready to put too much stock in this report, but it could be the case that Tesla is actually spinning up the R&D efforts to eventually release a vehicle around $25,000 that's different from the Cybercab. But again, I would not be expecting anything like that anytime before 2027, and I think it's important to note sometimes projects in the R&D phase never actually see the light of day. So at this point, I'm okay saying that the $25,000 Tesla is not yet completely dead, but I would also still say I think it's quite unlikely, especially anytime soon. As Sawyer shared, the new Model 3 Premium has entered production in Fremont with new black badging, with the turn signal back, and yes, with the front bumper camera and washer included. If you missed my video last week, Sawyer did clarify that Tesla said no retrofits for the front bumper camera for the Model 3 will be offered. Dropping in on the Tesla careers page for the vehicle operator autopilot position, we currently have 15 active results. And the states, we have Arizona, California, Colorado, Texas, Florida, Nevada, and Chicago. Again, referring back to that post from Warren earlier, the only cities in Florida are Miami, Claremont, and Tampa. Still no mention of Orlando, where he saw that Model Y. Today, GM released a filing saying they were going to take a $1.6 billion charge thanks to adjusting their EV plans. GM said it expects the adoption rate of EVs to slow. And it's not only losing the tax credit that's going to hurt, but they're still dealing with the new tariffs, as the tariffs alone caused GM to take a $1.1 billion hit last quarter. Now look, I know we've dunked on GM in the past for some of their decisions and some of Mary's commentary, but in this case I'll say it's pretty unfortunate for GM because they really have been trying to push the needle forward with electric vehicles, definitely more so than any other legacy automaker. But now the way things are shaking out, companies like Toyota and Honda that have dragged their feet on fully electric vehicles and instead prioritized hybrids are going to benefit the most, which yes, I find quite unfortunate. And in case you missed it, both GM and Ford had plans initially to allow their dealers to offer a $7,500 tax credit on EV leases even after the tax credit went away. However, both companies have since walked back those plans. So basically what we have here is GM admitting that they spent a bunch of money on new machines and tooling for EVs. They signed deals with suppliers, but now they're realizing they overdid it, so they're writing off some of that spending as a loss. It'll break down as a $1.2 billion non-cash impairment, basically lowering the book value of that equipment because they won't use it as much as they were expecting to. And the rest, the $400 million, will be contract cancellation fees and settlements, which effectively will be what GM pays to suppliers for saying, actually, you know what, we're not going to need those EV parts anymore. And we're only 2 weeks removed from the tax credit being gone, and GM already knows for sure, hey, we need to cut back. And actually, looking at the 8K from GM, it was on October 7th when their board of directors approved these charges. With the Tesla investing in xAI vote approaching swiftly, we need to touch on what xAI is doing with its new Macrohard endeavor. Recent news told us xAI is now pushing to build some new world models, and that xAI has hired specialists from NVIDIA over the summer to work on these next-gen AI models, which train on videos and data from robots to understand the real world. Two people familiar said xAI was building world models with a view to applying them in gaming, where they could be used to generate interactive 3D environments. One of the people added they could be applied to AI systems for robots. Last month, NVIDIA told Financial Times the potential market for world models could be almost the size of the present global economy, which is quite hard to fathom. And xAI has now said they would release a great AI-generated game before the end of next year. And xAI currently has an open position for a video games tutor that will train Grok to produce video games. Elon shared the image of the Macrohard word on the roof of the xAI building, which yes, is a play on Microhard from Microsoft. And if you haven't been following along, Macrohard is effectively trying to become a software conglomerate, but of course they want to build this software with AI agents alone. Elon said the Macrohard project will be profoundly impactful at an immense scale. Our goal is to create a company that can do anything short of manufacturing physical objects directly, but will be able to do so indirectly, much like Apple has other companies manufacture their phones. So that's interesting. No direct manufacturing, but potentially creating products that end up as physical, tangible products, just manufactured by someone else. So could these products be manufactured by Tesla? Imad said OpenAI revenue this year, $10 billion, video game revenue this year, $200 billion. But I shared that because Elon replied to it saying, xAI is going big into video games because I love and play video games. Making money is a secondary concern. So naturally, as an owner of Tesla who may be soon investing into xAI, that's not exactly what you want to hear. From first principles, just thinking about a financial investment, you would want Elon and xAI to be focused on making as much money as possible. Now, of course, you all have to decide how you want to weigh all of this as we consider a Tesla investment into xAI. And I know a lot of you already voted, but certainly not everyone has. Just keep in mind, video games are not the primary focus of Macrohard. Elon might be overly focused on it, but Macrohard really is more of a broad AI software company. Again, these AI agents are expected to create the code, refine the software and actually simulate entire corporate operations. So if this comes to fruition, think of a self-sustaining entity that could eventually operate like a full-fledged firm. And thinking about the longer-term implications of this, if we were to have this AI software company where they could build prototype apps in hours instead of months, that would certainly be meaningful when it comes to job displacement for coders and engineers. Ming Fang from XAI said, just wrapped an incredibly productive week at XAI's London office. The energy here is unreal, brilliant minds, endless ideas, and some serious momentum. Let's just say the Macrohard project is simmering nicely and the team is absolutely cooking. Over the past year plus, XAI has been hiring engineers for this London office. This location really just serves as a strategic hub, which helps to support this global collaboration across teams. Based Beth Bezos said, we need to roboticize and re-industrialize. To which Elon replied saying, wait until you see what Tesla does with Optimus. So XAI, new world models for video games and robots, Macrohard designing products other companies manufacture, some pretty interesting storylines for the next few years. Tesla is doing some advertising, if you can call it that, in different places. Tesla now has a sponsored article talking about EV fleets on the Australian Car Expert website. Tesla is pitching fleet electrification to small and medium businesses. EV Wire said carexpert.com.au gets around 3 to 6 million monthly visits, with 77% of the traffic coming from Australia. Then, as Sawyer pointed out, Tesla is running paid ads on Paramount Plus, encouraging people to vote.
We are building a safer, cleaner, and more enjoyable world for all. We call this sustainable abundance. Tesla is on the precipice of its next wave of transformational growth, and we need your support ahead of our annual meeting on November 6th.
So, if you needed any proof of how important this vote is to Tesla and the future, I think that tells you. But then in the Melbourne airport, we have this ad from Tesla. Some buttons start cars, others start the future, with an image of a Tesla and the Start FSD button. And I think advertising for stuff like this is more of what we would want to see. Also in Australia, Tesla's now starting to bundle FSD as part of the price for inventory vehicles, offering up to $5,000 in some cases if you buy a vehicle with FSD. On the website, it says, enjoy savings on eligible inventory vehicles when bought with FSD. And Tesla is still showing that a subscription option is on the way, coming soon, 149 Australian dollars per month. We're now 2 years plus for this Swedish union fight against Tesla. We now have Lind, one of Sweden's biggest truck companies, saying if Tesla has a problem with a truck, it will not be repaired or serviced. They told us negotiations right now remain deadlocked. So Tesla will have to find yet another workaround, as it's been doing for the past 2 years. And so far this year, Tesla Sweden has only registered about 5,700 vehicles through September, which was down over 65% year over year. Eric, the lead engineer for Robotaxi, replied to Sawyer talking about the Cybercab, saying it's so good and way better than it was a year ago as well. That referring to the status of development at the 1010 event last year. Hiro Mizuno, former Tesla board member, said Japan's Ministry of Land, Infra, and Transport made the decision to allow retrofitting of autonomous driving through software updates, and he said that's significant. Currently, Tesla's the only manufacturer actively pursuing this, but I had thought if actual autonomous driving were to begin, it would be impossible to keep up if the approval process had to be repeated for every software update, which should sound familiar because it's what China is trying to force Tesla to do. Back to Hiro, as a result, this decision will make it easier for all manufacturers to introduce autonomous driving in Japan. So hopefully this paves the way for an expedited FSD release in Japan. While EV sales in the US are expected to slow, the US is adding EV chargers at a record pace. About 780 public high-speed charging stations opened across the US in Q3, the largest single quarter jump on record. In total, the country's network of fast chargers has grown by 19% so far this year. There's been a surge in partnerships with retailers, restaurants, and travel centers eager to attract EV drivers. Players at the forefront of this movement, Cracker Barrel, Target, Wawa, IKEA, and Dunkin' Donuts. And just an aside on that EV slowdown, Farley recently predicted from Ford that EVs might fall from around 10% of US sales down to 5% in Q4. Again, we have some Chinese accounts reporting that Tesla placed an order for 1,000 dexterous hand modules for Optimus. This apparently placed with Hangzhou Xinjiang Transmission Co. At the end, they said since this order is for the complete dexterous hand assembly, it suggests Tesla's Optimus hand replacement solution may have been rapidly approved. And that right there should be the trigger that this is likely nonsense. We've been talking for a year plus now how the hand is the most important part of Optimus, how Tesla is shifting things to move the actuators into the forearm to mimic the human hand, and how Tesla is playing its cards very close to the chest with the new version of the hand, and finally that Tesla is designing everything, including for the hand, in-house. So I would say there's absolutely no way that Tesla is buying 1,000 completed hand modules from any company. However, there might actually be something here, it's just we're getting lost in translation. I say that because this company, Hangzhou Xinjiang, is a real Chinese company and they specialize in precision transmission components like planetary roller screws and micro ball screws. And it's been confirmed in multiple Chinese industry reports and local news outlets to be a supplier to Tesla, particularly for components used in the Optimus robot. And some of these reports actually date back to 2022, where they were focused on high precision parts for robot joints and hands. So there could be a world where Tesla is actually sourcing some specific components from this company, specifically some of these micro ball screws, particularly for version 3 using a screw and tendon composite drive system. The reporting I could find says the company's products excel in load-bearing capacity and lifespan, and they said production is expected by late 2025. This would position Hangzhou in the Tier 2 supplier category for Optimus. And there's more talking about this very company and Optimus. The degrees of freedom of the dexterous hand are improved from 11 degrees of freedom to 22. That for one hand, and the active degrees of freedom from 6 to 17, which is what we've heard before from Tesla. And the drive system, the motors in the palm are moved to the forearm, that is, they're changed from internal to external. The hand space is no longer restricted by the motor, which not only helps the dexterous hand to achieve a high degree of freedom design, but also helps to reduce the cost of maintenance and repair. And the insiders are saying since the motor drive device was moved to the forearm, the volume limitation of the palm was released, and Tesla replaced some hollow cut motors with lower cost brushless slotted motors. The report said compared with second generation hands that relies on torsion springs to achieve finger extension, the Gen 3 hand uses tendons to drive finger extension, further improving finger flexibility. And finally, the sensor system expand the coverage of tactile sensors and integrate more types of sensors. The Gen 3 hand tactile sensors have achieved full coverage of fingers and palms, which can more comprehensively perceive the external environment. Tactile perception may be upgraded to a visual tactile perception solution. It also integrates other multimodal perceptions like 6-dimensional force sensors and temperature sensors, which can more accurately perceive the surface texture, shape, and force of objects, thereby achieving more precise dynamic grasping and complex operation tasks. So there you have it. I absolutely think there is something underlying this report. It's just that Ming account was losing some things in translation. But this company has worked with Tesla in the past, and it sounds like these people reporting have an accurate assessment of what Tesla is actually doing with the Gen 3 hand. So plenty of people were quick to completely write off this report from Ming, and I understand why, but you know what they say, where there is smoke, sometimes there's fire. And in this case, it just required a bit more digging to figure out what's going on. So my take on this, Tesla is absolutely in the process of working with a potential Tier 2 supplier for parts for the Optimus hand version 3. And just one final line from the report. These hollow cut motors have completed the B round of testing through the top group channel and entered the Tesla supply chain certification process. They're expected to start small scale verification in Q4 this year year, and if all goes well, it can be mass produced in 2026 in conjunction with the Optimus Gen 3 mass production. And again, all of this checks out with what we've heard officially from Tesla. The Say website to submit and vote for questions for Tesla's Q3 call is now live. The top question right now: what are plans for new car models? Will Tesla build compact car models leveraging the unboxed Cybercab platform? Will Tesla build a traditional SUV and pickup truck in the Cybertruck platform? Up next, what are the latest Robotaxi metrics, fleet size, cumulative miles, rides completed, intervention rates, and when will safety drivers be removed? Elon already answered that. He said by the end of this year. But who knows, maybe he accelerates that timeline on the call. What are the obstacles still preventing unsupervised FSD from being deployed to customer vehicles? I'll have this link below if you want to read the rest. Tesla stock closed the day at $429.24, down 1.53%, while the NDX was down 0.69%. The volume was 24% below the average. Don't forget, check out Surfshark links below for those interested. As always, thank you guys for considering supporting the channel in that way. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X, linked below. And a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.